This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett, and today we're fighting Zeds through the use of delicious slow motion as we check out some of the weapons of Killing Floor 2. The weapons seem to have been built using like a modular system though. If you watch some of them in slow motion, you can see all the pieces sort of like rattling and moving independently.
Oh wow, I think king of the wobbly guns is our Sturmgewehr.
Just you wait until you see the reload.
Why is that happening?
You can watch a longer director's cut edition of this episode over on Patreon, and by signing up you'll also get early access to next week's Hold Fast Nations at War episode. We have unfortunately been sunk.
Oh yeah, so you have. That's unfortunate.
You know the old rule about captains?
Oh yeah, going down with the ship. Yeah, okay.
Go for it, men. Our job's going on.
But we hope you enjoy this episode, and without further ado, I will throw it over to Jonathan.
Alright, so on the face of it, a short-barreled AR-15, but we quickly see that this is pistol caliber. I don't know if this is supposed to be the Colt's 935, which is the flat-top version of the 635, which is the granddaddy of pistol caliber carbines, at least when it comes to AR-15, or AR-9s as people annoyingly have started referring to them as. Old man yells at clouds again. And we've got a rail on our rail, so we can rail while we rail, for some reason.
Exhibit comes up so often these days.
He really does, yeah. Well, it's pimp my gun, isn't it, at the end of the day? So there's actually a lot going on here, because I've also just noticed the reload on empty is pulling the charging handle to the rear, which of course would work. Normally we'd use our bolt release. However, if this is the Colt SMG, it's open bolt, which means you can't use the bolt release because the bolt will go forward. It won't stay back, because it couldn't really work otherwise. He's got his skin off.
When you run the gun dry, the bolt will be to the rear, and then you use the charging handle to send it forward again.
I mean, the bolt hold open is fitted. I can't recall if it's fitted on the 635 or not. We don't have any of these, annoyingly. The only pistol caliber AR-15 we have is a conversion of a sort of loosely M16A2 semi-auto, actually. I think I did a video on one, on our channel, on it rather, which is a different system. Closed bolt, but still doesn't lock open on empty.
So the tactical reload perk, this is me using the same weapon with that perk activated, which changes the speed of the reload, but also the reload method, or the technique.
I do like that as a way to change up your reloads, because we're used to reload on empty, reload not on empty, having different animations. This is something a bit new.
So since the game allows me to use console commands to make it very slow motion, you can see all the bits moving. The tactical reload is a wick flick and slam the bolt catch.
No, variety within the sort of practical limits of what the gun should be doing, ideally. I'm conscious that this is a sort of a fantasy setting, so you could be going further than reality, but I prefer not to. You know, the guns are supposed to be guns from our world, even if the enemies are not. So are we using our multiple our rail on top of a rail at all in this game, or is it just sitting there?
No, there's no real customization to the weapons.
Oh.
But the weapons seem to have been built using like a modular system though. Because if you watch some of them in slow motion, you can see all the pieces that would make logical sense sort of like rattling and moving independently. Some of them sort of wriggle and shake a bit more than I think they ought to. I will leave that to your expertise though. Where the rail attaches to the upper, there will be a little movement between the upper and rail in slow motion firing. While it might not make sense at this movement, the movement is happening at that seam. So it seems as if those weapons have been built from digital versions of the pieces that they should be built from, is a much better way of saying everything I just said.
Interesting, though. Let's think about this. So there is play between the upper receiver and the lower receiver of an AR-15, and it's a design flaw, essentially, a small design flaw of the AR-15, AR-10 system. But so, yeah, you might, in theory, see a tiny bit of play Likewise, some pistols have play between the slide and the frame, and that's built in, and it's not really a problem. But play between two components, be it a sight and a rail, or a rail on a rail, so you can rail while you rail, there should be no play at all, because that would be really bad, and it's really easy to fix.
Well, wait until you see how much this AK-12 wriggles in slow motion.
Ooh, yeah. So that is... Ooh.
I noticed the barrel's recoiling.
Yeah. I was just about to say, is it me, or is the barrel moving?
Yeah. So I think they've tried to get a little AN-94 in here.
No.
Because it's fully automatic and burst, so... And then in the slow motion, you can really see it move and wriggle.
Oh, it's obscene how flaccid that thing is. Ugh, it's all wobbly. I don't like it. Oh, look at the sights. The sights wobble. Oh, that's horrifying.
Build standards aren't great here.
No, I mean, well, this has been said of the AK-12. So, what can I say? There's a good amount of detail on this model, although the colour seems a bit off. Like, the AK-12 is much blacker than this.
Oddly hypnotic, these long reloads, though.
Yes, you probably got a good still of me going there. And if you didn't before, you have now.
And these are the tactical reloads as well. So it's thumbing the magazine away from yourself. I thought the cooler one was the reloading with the magazine.
Yeah, it's weird to go for the Polish Special Forces, I think. They knock the mag out with the other mag thing, and to sort of do what would be the slower version of that for your supposedly more tactical reload. Doesn't really make sense. Well, I suppose it would make sense if there was a sort of penalty to the perk that actually made your reload slower.
But a lot of the animations for a lot of the weapons are done very well. You can tell that there's been a lot of care and attention put into those. And we'll see a bunch more interesting ones across the rest of this episode as well.
I'll be the judge of that. No, I'm sure we will. As to the design itself, I did get confused initially because I haven't looked at this for a long time, but this is not the AK-12 that you will see in news footage. This is the original design. The original idea was to move the architecture, as it were, further away from the original AK. This thing didn't do very well and wasn't carried forward into production. Oh, and by the way, it does have that, despite being more radical in its redesign, it still has the little classic AK front sight post sticking out the front and a fairly conventional AK-74, AK-100, AK-200 gas block setup, but with a tiny bit of Picatinny rail on top of that gas block. I'm not sure why. If I had to guess, I'd speculate that originally they didn't want to bother with the front iron sight and they were going to have it as a removable optional backup sight that would clip on at that location, but they didn't get around to doing that because it got sort of cancelled effectively. Technically, this is the only other small arm that I can think of, other than SA-80, or L-85 if you prefer, specifically the rifle, to get redesigned halfway through its design project. But it definitely shouldn't have the barrel moving back and forth.
Someone wanted to put an AN-94 in the game, and this must have been the capitulation.
I guess, but does it have burst?
Yeah, it's the burst. It's got fully automatic and burst, and the burst is much faster than 3 rounds on automatic. It feels like it's trying to be a hyper burst.
Right. So I guess in whichever universe that zombies and things emerged that isn't ours, the AK-12 was also combined as a project with the AN-94. Highly unlikely because of the way that the major design changes that had to be made for the AN-94 to be at all wieldable mean that the whole architecture was different to an AK, and although this was a sort of attempt to take the AK off in a slightly different direction, it is still pretty AK inside.
Now finish the job. Allez.
So a huge revolver. Is this like a performance center version of a Smith & Wesson 500 or something?
It's called the S&W 500 in game, so they're definitely aping the Smith & Wesson 500.
I've seen that railed, contoured, extended barrel, and I can't think it would be on anything but the 500. It also proportionately has that huge cylinder. Good slow-mo on the action there. So this is enforced single action, I take it.
Yes.
Common, somewhat common for Magnum revolvers in games, isn't it? So the gun itself, to be clear, will operate just by pulling through on the trigger. Any Kentucky Ballistics fans will know that. And I count myself as one of those, by the way. Yeah, so that is absolutely devastating, both in terms of damage and momentum, in a way that physics does not allow for in our reality. These are powerful pistols, but at the same time, they're only really sort of black powder rifle levels of power. And you don't get many stories from the Crimean War or the American Civil War of guys flying through the air having been shot with a 5.77 or 5.8 caliber bullet. So
I've definitely started to think about Kentucky ballistics every time a Magnum Revolver of this size appears in a video game. He's really cornered the market on being the big revolver guy. But then I compare the recoil to what he's able to accomplish with the player character, and no player character has got tree trunk arms like Kentucky ballistics has.
yeah, if anything, the dual wield here is less realistic, because there should be a lot more. There's more visible recoil with two hands on the gun than there is with one hand on the gun, which is obviously backwards. If cool, it is cool to have two 550 caliber revolvers blazing away. What I thought I saw as well there was the vortex ring muzzle flash that you see in things like Kentucky ballistics videos. Am I right?
Yeah, you can definitely see that circular vortex muzzle flash.
I've always thought that was fascinating to watch. I think I've seen it once in real life. Just caught it happening, but generally it's not like most things aren't capable of producing that. And it's something you see with the 500 a fair bit. It might be the first time I've ever seen that. So definitely some detail being applied here.
Keep it up. When you're done, I can reopen the trader pod.
It's funny how tiny that Beretta looks.
You versus the guy she told you not to worry about.
Even with that flashlight on the rail.
Between the model, the animations, and the tactical reloads between singular pistol and dual wielding, quite a lot of detail in this gun. And it's the first gun you get. It's like the default sidearm.
So a recent acquisition, in fact. This is a Beretta M9A1. This is so new, I don't think it has a number yet. And I think, if not the M9A1, then clearly one of the modern Beretta variants is the basis for this. So yeah, there is definitely some detail there. So all the various bits on the back of the Beretta slide are very visible. So on a spectrum of Doom toy Beretta to the real thing, this is much more toward the real thing than the original Doom. I think I'm still playing Dark Ages at the moment, so Doom is in the forefront of my mind. Looking pretty good from the shooter's point of view. You can even see, which I think is nice, the inside of the rail. Now, it might sound obvious, but I don't think that everything, by any means, has modelled the inside of a slide like that. You see these bits, the bits that are visible on the outside, but I don't think you get that much attention to detail. Certainly not on older games. And yeah, I think it might be the first game I remember seeing to actually show those locking lugs. You can see them appearing and disappearing on the camera there. So unlocked as the thing comes forward. So the barrel slide comes forward. There are the lugs lining up, and then the final thing that the frame does for the gun is pop those up into their notches. And then when that's all locked up, these are effectively one thing. Everything's solid. You get your obturation with your case and everything. And it's only when the thing comes back that the lugs get dropped down out of the way, allowing the slide to come back and the barrel to stay where it is. So that's all been modelled quite nicely. Oh, and incidentally, this is why several movies now, I think starting with Jet Li, and I've forgotten what's in now. That'll cause comment. Removing or even just undoing the disassembly lever on the Beretta allows you to spin round and disable the gun by whipping off the slide and barrel assembly. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone do that for real, because in reality you'd have to grab it just so to press in the catch of this side, push down the lever on the other, and then pull it off the gun. I'm sure. So you need the sort of fine motor skills to be able to do that, and the sort of gross motor skills to be able to whip off the whole thing. But it's a cool move that you will have seen in at least one movie, I suspect, if you're a fan of this channel.
Or something similar in a cutscene on Metal Gear Solid 3. And I won't say any more about that for now.
Okay.
Between researching, editing, and capturing footage, I spend a lot of time in front of this computer. Shocker, I know. But now that EXP is independent, staying secure online is more important to me than ever. Which is where today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN, comes in. Surfshark's app and browser extension allows you to take your device and virtually move it into a different spot from a list of over 100 countries. And since we've started covering more movies here on EXP, this has been super useful for unlocking movies on streaming sites like Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, so we can kick back and watch films that wouldn't usually be available in the UK, you know, for valuable research purposes. Surfshark VPN also helps keep my data safe while I'm out traveling and hopping between any number of public Wi-Fi hotspots. Use our link in the description or code EXPDEAL to get 4 months absolutely free. And if you change your mind, no worries, as they also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thanks again to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this episode, and now I'll get back to the video.
What on earth are these things?
It's like big pneumatic fists, but also shotguns.
Ah.
So take the Inglorious Bastards punch pistol and send it to space.
Yeah, pretty much. Only bigger, bulkier, and less practical.
Yeah, not exactly covert, these things.
This is intriguing. This is new and different, pretty much. I think the Sedgley fist gun is the closest there is to anything like this. Does hitting close range do the shotgun barrel damage and the impact damage?
That's right, yeah. So
Okay.
it's still mainly a melee weapon because it's for the Berserker class, but it gives you just a little ranged option.
Okay.
But yeah, if you hit someone square in the jaw with it, you're both punching them and hitting them with 4 barrels of, I don't know, based on scale, might be 410 shotgun.
Yeah, so I was looking again at the infamous, if you know about it, niche infamous DARPA report on the early experience with the AR-15 in the jungle in Vietnam, and these reports of heads and limbs being completely severed by this amazing Wunderwaffen, which are exaggerations. You know, the people have tried to explain them in various ways, but at the end of the day, they're just exaggerating. Punching someone with an enormous chunk of metal and multiple 12-gauge shotgun barrels with presumably buckshot in them are going to try and remove something in one hit. That's how it's going to happen. That or a sort of 40mm cannon or something. Or I guess an explosive 20mm cannon round, maybe, if it initiates. Anyway, that's all getting a bit grim.
Hostiles inbound! You're proper cooked, mate! Flame on!
Oh, hello.
This is basically a homemade flamethrower made out of
Yeah.
like a cork gun. It's called the Cork and Burn.
Yeah, nice. I mean, not nice. Don't try this at home. That would be a really bad idea and would be completely illegal in most countries. However, that's really cool. I like what they've done there. Your typical flamethrower is either an actual historical or contemporary flamethrower design that's just been sort of copied, or some sort of sci-fi pastiche thing with a fuel tank and a burner nozzle. And we have seen some homemade type designs before. This is a bit different because it's combining the sort of trigger action of a caulking gun or whatever you want to call them with some improvised igniters and some flammable cans. So I think it's a really cool design. They've actually thought through what you might need to make something improvised, rather than just making it look like it's improvised.
It's using the effect from the other flamethrowers in the game, because there are more traditional flamethrowers as well as sci-fi flamethrowers.
Yeah.
But they're using that spray of burning fuel those weapons use on this more improvised one. So weirdly, that's one of the criticisms we always talk about when it comes to flamethrowers, that the spray effect is not accurate. But weirdly, they've tried to model one more authentically for their more authentic flamethrowers, put it on this improvised one, and it's not making sense the other way.
Yeah, I think it's a bit too much for something like improvised like this. Having said that, I'm thinking of even hairspray will stick to you and burn. So there must be some substances out there that would at least semi-resemble this, but probably not to the big flamey extent that we see here. I hesitate to speculate further or to invite comments, but in case we all end up on a list. All right. There's something deeply wrong about this thing without a carrying handle. It just doesn't look right. So we have a flat top receiver, and you could very easily recreate this by swapping this out for a rail upper, which I'm not going to do because it's sacrilege. I'm a fan of the retro ARs anyway, but this square polymer upper handguard that comes on the M203 M16s just looks so wrong with a flat top behind it. And if we're not allowing players to put optics on there, just model it with this. Anyway, this is what it should look like. This is an M16A1 with an M203 grenade launcher underslung. There's that wobbly barrel again. So, in theory, I'm a fan of showing the barrel flexing under recoil, because that's a real thing that happens. However, I think it's doing it too much. Maybe not in slow motion on some of the guns, but on this gun, one of the side effects, well, it's not really a side effect, it's a design intent, of the stoner system with the gas tube coming back into the action, is that there's a lot less mass being deflected up here, and therefore a lot less barrel flex. So the weapon is inherently a little bit more accurate than something with a piston that's external to the bolt group. Or to put it another way, the barrel's a little bit too wobbly. The only M16 or AR-15 barrel that is likely to wobble visibly in a slow motion video probably is this one though, because it's the 20-inch barrel with a very skinny profile. And it's really not visible in non-slow-mo either. I think the grenade launcher is working as it should, pretty much. Catch up front here, press it with a thumb, slide forward. You've all seen this, you've just seen it just now, in fact. This is a pretty faithful representation. Comes in late-ish 1969, if I remember correctly, in Vietnam, and starts to replace the XM148 grenade launcher, and is in service for many, many years after that. Yeah, so I'm perfectly happy with that, except for the carry handle, I think. Oh wow, I think king of the wobbly guns is our Sturmgewehr.
Just you wait until you see the reload.
Why is that happening?
That line's got some future use.
This is not a Sturmgewehr, well, in the loose sense, in the wider sense of the term it is. It's the MKB-42H, the Heinel open bolt operating forerunner of the Sturmgewehr. You can spot the long gas tube up here, and that's that reload where we're pulling back the cocking handle, locking it into the notch, changing magazines.
They do like a weird cupped slap where it's both slapping down but pulling towards the player,
which is legit. So I was just thinking, do I have it in me to HK slap the only one of these in the collection? And I decided no, I don't, because that obviously puts a bit of wear on a part that wasn't designed for it, like it was on things like the MP5, and they've accounted for that. So what am I getting at? Well, the notch that this is locked into, how well you can see this on camera, but there is much deeper than on an HK. Or at least, and profile differently, more importantly. So you could slap that back and down quite hard, but you'd need a lot of force to do it, and it would hurt the palm of your hand. So really the only way to do it on a real physical gun is to pull back and pull down and let it go. Now, to be fair, you don't need it to run forward with any great velocity because this isn't chambering around. It's open bolt. It lets go from back here to chamber around and fire it. The whole point of a slap is to give it the full run to make sure it correctly chambers that round. You don't need to do that on this weapon. So the way to do it in reality is pull it out, drop it down, and ease it forward onto the sear, and then when you pull the trigger, bolt flies forward, chambers around, fires it, blows back to that locked open position again. It's a different setup to the later gun. Kind of intriguing that they've not only gone with this variant, because Sniper Elite had this in one of the games. Can't now remember if they operated it correctly. All of that's very cool. I mean, because in combat you probably would sort of slingshot that onto the sear rather than easing it on. The other thing to say about this is just how wobbly it is, which is kind of okay in that, well, certainly the dust cover being up here on the side, that may well move a little bit under firing, although the momentum is forward and backward, not side to side, so that probably stays put, maybe tiny movements. I think the rear sight's flapping up and down in slow-mo as well, if I remember correctly from the last clip. And we have that barrel flex again. Now with this tube, this gas tube and the barrel clamped into the same gas block right at the front, I don't think that's going to happen. The whole thing would deflect very slightly downwards each time, but I think that would be imperceptible even on slow-mo. But I have not fired an MKB under extreme high rate of frame. High rate of frame? Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I've come to jam on you again.
Yeah, so here it is. Here it is. Due for replacement, maybe 2030 something. Contrary to some belief, not already being replaced, but it is. They're trying very hard to replace it as we speak. So L85A1, that's what's in the game. Only that one has had the modification to shroud the magazine catch, which is frankly unbelievable that they didn't do that before. This is the original mod, which is a catch of a different design that makes it harder to hit the front bit. So that's what went into service. The original catch was flat and it was very easy to bump. So rather than go straight to the shroud, they went to this design and went, oh, that'll be fine. But of course, it's still pressing against your kit, and magazines were still dropping out to the point where soldiers had to bungee cord them so if they fell out, they wouldn't lose a magazine full of live rounds, which would catch them a lot of trouble. And of course, leave them without a weapon, a loaded weapon, if they needed it. Overall, it's looking pretty good. It does have the A2 Picatinny rail, or a version of it, on the top of the receiver, which it should not have. Britain was one of a handful of nations, maybe I can only think of Spain being one other, that adopted the actual NATO standard rail before Picatinny was re-standardised as a Stanag. So it should be a different profile of rail on there. And it's interesting, it comes with an EOTech by default. Just about everything else comes with iron sights by default, so they could have just put the carry handle and the front detachable front iron sight on it, and it would have been much more correct. Was there a reload there that I managed to miss where they did use the catch?
No, both of them use the charging handle.
And the bolt doesn't lock open either. And in fact, if I look at the what should be the bolt release, it looks like it's a fixture kind of molded into or stamped into the receiver. It's not. It's a separate component with a polymer knob on the outside of it that you push up on. So that is a cock up, unfortunately. So it should be locking open, and you should be releasing the bolt with that catch. You shouldn't have to operate the charging handle. Well, the two go together, don't they? If your hold open is broken, let's be honest, it's an A1, so it is possible that it's not locking open because it's broken. In which case, you would have to operate the charging handle to chamber a fresh round. So maybe it's acceptable.
Mostly got your attention.
Right, Stoner 63. Nice one to see. Yeah, so that reload is interesting. I think that is the only viable way to reload this thing. If you're not going to be lying down or crouching down, you would have to sort of brace it in under the arm. Thinking about this logically, you would cock it when it's empty, then you would reach back, push forward on the catch, push forward on the top cover, change your feed device, open this door, pull out the belt, lay it across, slap that down, close the door, or just not bother. But if you don't do that, your belt box might slide out and fall out, because the door is what stops it from moving to the right and falling out. It's always fun to sort of try out whether these things are at all feasible or not. So being belt fed, we have ejection ports for the cartridge cases and the link above there. So case, link, and I think we see both. So yeah, I haven't talked really about case ejection, but I think the cases are coming out with enough sort of velocity and authority to look realistic. So many games just don't do that, and they come trickling out. These are maybe still not enough, not violent enough. In the amount of space you have on the screen, from your typical first-person view, you should barely be aware of cases.
It is correctly depicting the cases and the links ejecting from the ejection ports you pointed out as well. In slow motion, the links are coming out of the port at the top, and the cases are coming out of the port just below it.
I thought they were, but then on the last clip, I wasn't sure. It looked almost like, I think just because the cases are on a rising trajectory, in which case they should continue to be.
Yeah, full game speed, they blend together in motion.
We do, however, have those rimmed cartridge cases again, so that's an endemic problem in this game, that what should be rimless rounds like these 5.56 here, with an extractor groove and not a rim sticking out. Instead, they are depicting rimmed rounds for some reason.
You know me now, don't you?
And I've got the sci-fi version that I'm looking at the moment, which is very, very unusual. Like if you ever see a Stoner 63 in a game, you're seeing the classic Vietnam era things, black, grey, phosphated, sheet metal and plastic, or wood perhaps, in the early versions, or early prototypes. Not something very white and sci-fi looking with blue neon on it, so that's a little off-putting. As to which variant it is, the commando length barrel, so this is the full length barrel. This is an XM207E1, by the way. So this is the Stoner 63A, or improvements for the 63A series, incorporated into a weapon that was used by, well, I believe it's used by the Navy SEALs as well, but they're more famous for the earlier Stoner variants, notably their belt-fed machine gun with the short commando barrel. So that's possibly what this is. I don't know. I think it's probably a 207, but with a shorter barrel. Yeah, I think that's a good choice by adopting this genuine feed system here. So it's almost a bit like a magazine. You pop open this gate on the side, and you can then withdraw this plastic box containing your 50 rounds. Sorry, your 100 rounds. 100 rounds of 5.56 fit in this. You slap that in, not too hard because it is made out of fairly brittle plastic, but it goes in, it stops, and then you slam that down, and then you do your reload as normal with the belt fed. It gives you a nice compromise of high capacity, 100 rounds, certainly higher than a 30 round mag, and compactness. Makes the whole thing a lot more compact. Obviously weight is still a thing, but it's balanced fairly well. People like the Navy SEALs, the Green Berets, or the Army Special Forces in general, who use the XM207 variant, but I believe Navy SEALs did get hold of some as well. But they mainly had the earlier forerunner of this, which did run into some problems with, well, operating reliably, the main one. Right, what's this?
Shrink ray. You got one,
Oh yeah, so it is. I was only seeing them explode. Is that because you keep shooting at them?
Yeah, if they get too small, they pop.
Ew, yeah.
Ew.
So I'm immediately thinking of Duke Nukem. First time I ever saw a shrink ray in a game.
Like lowers their health pool, so they become weaker.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I guess I remember seeing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids as quite a young child and being a little disturbed.
Yeah, that movie freaked me out as well.
And the whole idea of being permanently tiny and being so vulnerable. And I absolutely hate that. Ant-Man was great. I thought it was a great movie, but I hate the scene where they shrink the sheep down. I thought, like, Christ, the things they put warnings in for, I needed a tiny animal killing warning for that. But I guess any animal cruelty makes the villain instantly a villain, doesn't it? Design-wise, it's pretty out there.
Yeah, I had to include one of the weirder ones, I feel.
I don't know. I think it's a good effort because there's glowing stuff, there's moving stuff, there's something that you sort of reload, but it still looks quite industrial, like an industrial piece of design. Bit of wood on there, bit of steel on there. We've got a weird sort of iron sight on the rear, but not really one on the front.
It's like a thin post on the front, or you're using one of the already...
It's one of the...
prongs as a sight?
Yeah, well, you certainly could. Mind you, it's a great big energy hose, so I think there's an argument there that you don't actually... And I guess that's why originally not originally, but from quite early on, the Star Trek phasers don't ever have sights. Never really explained why, but I think intuitively they were it was from the era of sort of reaction shooting anyway. But you see the beam of energy come out. Of course, that's hugely problematic if the first thing it hits isn't the thing you wanted to shoot at. So some sort of sights are really, really necessary. I don't know. I like it as a piece of design. I think it's probably got issues as a practical weapon in various ways. What it doesn't really do is it feels like it's designed as a weapon. So that's fine. In universe, it's a weapon that shrinks your enemies to kill them. Job done. I guess I'd be in broader sci-fi terms. I'm thinking, okay, why we've got this technology for shrinking things down, maybe for sticking in people's bodies to diagnose them or whatever, like in that other film, Inner Space. Some practical reason. Can't remember why in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids it was supposed to be such an advantage to do that. But we're then adapting it to shoot people with as a weapon. There's not really a hint there of adaptation. This has been designed. But that's fine. That's presumably the law of the game, is that some psychopath didn't want to shoot you with bullets or energy blasts or whatever. They wanted to shrink you down into tiny size and pop you like a pimple, which is disgusting.
Thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comment section below what other games, movies, TV shows and beyond you would like to see on the show. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's episode. As always, a massive shout out to all of our supporters over on Patreon for supporting EXP and for helping make these episodes happen. Links to support Jonathan and the Royal Armouries will be in the description below, so be sure to check those out. But until the next episode, thank you again for watching and we'll see you real soon.